The FBI actually told big tech to please censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. We know this because Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook or Meta or whatever they call themselves now, went on Joe Rogan's podcast. And Rogan, who pretends to be like casual and pretends to have this like, well, let me think about it. Like a little, not a dumb demeanor, but a little bit of a dumbed down demeanor. Ask Zuckerberg about this. And this is what Zuckerberg said.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like you should be on high alert. There was we thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have. If something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper-political issue, so depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, if they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
Cody 1987 says pretty much admits to censoring. Well, yes, Mark Zuckerberg does admit to censoring. And remember that word that he said, I don't know the percentage, but it was meaningful. Of course it is. I can tell you as someone whose content has run afoul of Mark Zuckerberg's so-called independent fact checkers, which are not independent, oftentimes funded by Facebook, sometimes funded by entities tied to the Chinese Communist Party. They are not independent. I can tell you that when your content is deprioritized the way that he's describing, it is extremely meaningful, meaning it is the way to fully censor someone without canceling them. So all Mark Zuckerberg is doing is trying to maintain some moral high ground by saying, well, we didn't censor it. But he did 99 out of 100 censoring. That's almost to full cancellation. So the word meaningful, the larger picture here isn't even what Facebook did. We know Facebook does this and it's wrong and they should be held accountable according to Section 230 and Congress should take action and all of that. But the larger picture here is that the FBI meddled in the 2020 election. The FBI told Facebook to be on the lookout for this particular story and to censor it. This is potentially big enough to have impacted the outcome of the 2020 election. 30% of Democrats shortly after the election said that if they had thought the Hunter Biden laptop story was real, they would have reconsidered their vote for Joe Biden. We wouldn't have needed a full 30% of Democrats to reconsider their vote. We would have needed a tiny fraction of Democrats. So if even a few of those people had changed their minds, President Trump could be in the Oval Office right now. A new poll shows that nearly 80% of Americans in both parties think that if people were aware of the Hunter Biden laptop story, then President Trump would have won that election. The FBI was behind that. It wasn't Facebook taking that move of their own volition. It was the FBI, an arm of the federal government, an agency of the executive branch of the federal government, coming into Facebook and saying, censor this, we don't want people to see this. And what's worse is the FBI used disinformation. They used this lie that it was Russian propaganda. They knew it wasn't Russian propaganda. They had the laptop. They knew it was true. They used misinformation and disinformation, not just misinformation, according to the fact checkers. This is disinformation because you intended to propagate false information to stifle us, to stifle this story, to back Joe Biden, and to defeat Donald Trump.